All right, everyone. Welcome to the webinar series of BERTEIG. So today, and I'm going to start very soon. If you can, there's a chat button. Just type where you're from. So where are you located at? I would love to know where is the audience in. And the chat will be enabled, so feel free to type in comments, questions, and everything. Okay, so it's 15 past 12, so I'm going to start. Maybe others can join as we go. And it's a very short webinar. This is a just 30-minute webinar. This is the second time I'm running this webinar specifically. I'm not sure if you have been the first one. If you had, let me know on the chat. And so what's the idea here? So I'm with BERTEIG. BERTEIG is a consulting and training company, and we do provide some trainings to focus on agility. So Scrum trainings, Scrum training, Kanban, SAFe, and many other methodologies out there. And specifically, I'm the one delivering this webinar today. I'm currently delivering many trainings at BERTEIG, including what we call micro-learning. So very quick before we start, and let me show you this. This is, by the way, this is an app that we use. It's called Miro. We use those on the training for collaboration. So you may be able to see that, the presentation or any collaboration that we would like to do, for example. So I was mentioning the micro-learning event. So if you want to know more about what we do, we are currently offering some micro-learning classes. Feel free to jump into berteig.com and register one. So interestingly, and very quick, currently we are offering an offer called Pay What Feels Right. So very soon the prices are going to be limited, and it's going to be $149 for 3-hour course. But also now you can pay what it feels like. So if you're doing that for yourself, maybe you consider paying $50. If you're doing to solve a business problem, maybe you consider paying more, $250, $1,000 if you'd like to. Anyway, join BERTEIG, watch those trainings, but let's get into it. Let's get into this conversation for our webinar today. And today, I'm going to give you 7 tips from design thinking to product owners. So if I may, let me just return here a little bit of myself. I have spent 15 years of my career working with continuous improvement projects, supporting different organizations, different industries, different types of services, but they all have one thing in common, which is problems. So if you don't have any problems, you don't need to attend this webinar. Or if you don't have any problem in your organization, maybe this webinar is useless for you. But I think we may have, and we have some opportunities to tackle. And I highlighted here some interesting techniques that I have used in when doing design thinking projects that could be great use for product owners. So the first one, and remember, you as a product owner, let me know in the chat if you're a product owner. So as a product owner, you are accountable for maximizing the product value, okay, the product business value. And there are many ways to do that. If you go to the Scrum guide, it doesn't tell you how to do, and it's up to you to figure it out. So some of the techniques here that I'm explaining, they can leverage what you're currently doing if you are not doing that already. And anyway, the first tip, it's understanding people's problems. So sometimes, and I do know this is unfortunate for many organizations out there, you just receive the idea and the requirements and you must just follow. So you are acting like a project manager rather than a product owner. But if you, independently of the situation that you are, one key tip from design thinking is to understanding people's problems. So it's fine if they tell you what to do and how to do it, but try to get more information. Try to understand who is the target audience, who are those customers for that, why is that important, why and what business problem you are trying to resolve, what are the important things that that solution is going to be used for. And you may want to invite some customers to your business. So for example, what we call the mainstream customers, they are a large group of people with common needs. So maybe there's some people that specific use that they want for that product, that solution, that app, for example. But there are some extreme users, those who use the product in a different way because their needs are different. Let me give you an example. So the transportation process nowadays are quite important. And in the beginning, Uber, for example, and you probably know that, used only, the objective was only to transport people. But people realized that if they would talk to drivers and they ask, okay, can you take this package to someone else, the driver would do it. And it was very convenient because you could track and you could take advantage of many things. What happened? Because the organization was able to observe what some extreme users were doing with those products. They were able to offer a new service. And it's pretty interesting because it creates synergy to the model you currently have. How? Again, observing the lead and extreme users. So remember that if you are doing a project, try to observe what and identify what is the common need and what may be some special needs. You may be able to create some long-term plans or identify some future opportunities based on how your customers are currently using what you have. Okay? By the way, if you have any comments, if you agree or disagree with me, feel free to put those thoughts on the chat. So that's one thing. So tip number one, observe the customer and observe how they do it. Tip number two, it's somehow connected with that part. It is identifying customer needs. So the thing here is you can definitely ask everyone and what do they want, what do they expect for your product, but do not take it for granted that they know how to explain or how to share what they don't know. So observe, take that into a questionnaire, ask many questions, give the product to them and see what happens. Remember the iPhone story. So Steve Jobs used to say, customer doesn't know until you offer something to them. I'm paraphrasing, of course. And once the iPhone was introduced, interestingly, it was shared and nobody knew that they could do or use a touchscreen phone. And nowadays, the majority the phones are like that. So try to be specific, try to see how they want, try to observe, identify some positive and negative aspects. I try to identify every single detail so you can translate the needs into user stories. You can create and share that information with your team. Okay, that is important. And remember, as a great product owner, you're not trying to say how your team should do it, but instead you're trying to capture the details around the customer needs. Okay, so what do they want? Do they want more efficiency? Do they want more quality? Do they want responsiveness? What are they feeling? How do they feel about the current service that you offer? Capture those things and share with your team. You're going to be successful in what you do. And tip number 3 is define a product mission. So sometimes people are very anxious for results, and I do get it. It's important, especially in a complex environment that we are. It's important to provide results as quick as possible. But you may need to provide some guidance to your team on what they do and why are they doing what they are doing. So providing a product mission to your team will help you to address many questions. Describing the product, suggesting and explaining what are the benefits that product will provide to the individuals, share some business goals. And allow me for a parenthesis, this is really key because many individuals in development teams, Scrum Masters, they don't know the impact of the product they are building. They cannot connect with a high level organizational objectives. And that's something really important and critical if you want to create a successful product. So a great description, benefit proposition, business goals, explain the market, some basic assumptions, and the shareholders and stakeholders are important to be mentioned on that. It can be a paragraph, it can be a drawing, it can be a sketch. The form and shape, it's up to you. But try to build something and explain why are you doing what you're doing. Spend some time up front. Have conversations with the key stakeholders and build a mission. It is fine if you want to evolve over time. So for example, SpaceX, I don't know if you are familiar with it, but initially they want to explore the space. Let me simplify that. But they found it was very costly, the process, so they would have to find cheaper ways of doing what they want to do. And one of the things which was considered impossible in the beginning, it was being able to land a rocket after it was launched in space. Of course, many attempts were tried and they failed, but it's okay because it's part of the learning process. At some point, they were able to make it, and it was impressive. So believe on what you're doing, focus on your mission, share that mission with your team. Okay? That's tip number 3. Tip number 4, generation and selection of product concepts. So some people would call this, of course, as the MVP. And I'm not specifically talking about an MVP, but you may be able to experiment different ideas and different concepts. So make that clear. For clarification purposes, I'm not saying that you have to have a sprint 0 or that you have to have a longer sprint planning, but explore some different possibilities your own, and also bring to a workshop, to a conversation where you can design different ideas. It's commonly mentioned this, think outside the box. But this idea of getting different product concepts is trying to create some analogies to different things in the market, different industries. Things like you can ask, okay, how the health environment have solved this problem before, how the manufacturing organizations have done this. If we were, and you can mention company X, how would we do it? You can use the power of analogy here. You can use some brainstorming techniques, but bring people together to think in a high level and a concept and what do you want to do. Okay? Sometimes things get rushed but think up front and a few possibilities and explore them so that you can evaluate how you can implement those things later. Okay. Of course, if you may experiment, you may decide that some ideas are going to fail and it is okay. You may decide that you're going to launch different products simultaneously to different markets, and you can experiment. You can measure, and you should measure that result. So tip number 4 is think in different product concepts. Okay. All right. The tip number 5, it's an interesting one, and we are talking here about balancing market versus technology. And if you step back for a second and think how we create the solutions we create, they are usually based on the knowledge that we have, unless you have a interesting structure that can provide you with some research, with some new experiments, and you're maybe creating a new technology and new thing. But usually we hear the demand, that's a marketing pool, and we use the current technology to offer a solution in place. The question is, can we make new technology? Can we build something new, or do we need something new to provide something that hasn't existed before? Again, if you are just acting as a project manager, not a product owner, you're just following the plan execution, maybe that's not for you at that moment. But just have in mind that the solutions we propose sometimes, they are based on a current technology offers. Think if you can create something else. Think like Amazon AWS, which is the digital part of Amazon. Once Amazon found that they needed something beyond of what they were currently using, they built Amazon AWS. So that's the idea. And I would say, of course, with time, money, and a great idea on a slide, you can make things happen. Okay? So don't be afraid to try, understand the constraints, understand what your customer wants now, and maybe think, what else can you do? Don't be constrained by the current technology that currently exists. Okay? Okay. Yeah, think about that. Not easy. And if I may say, especially if you were in an extreme situation, if you were in a very small organization or a much large organization, that's going to be a problem for both situations. Why? Because sometimes there's no money or there's no flexibility. But find a common ground, find a new possibility, and explore new things. Those could be your key to create something new and something that is going to be amazing in the near future. Okay. Tip number 6, perform economic analysis. Some people are afraid of this, and some product owners especially. As I mentioned before, you are supposed to be accountable for maximizing your business value. So how are you measuring that? I feel really sorry when having conversation with people and they are saying, oh, I'm doing a new API to my team, and say, okay, that's good. What's the business impact of that? I don't know. And some others saying, oh, we're building a new platform so we can connect the sales team with their customers. Okay, what's the business impact of that? It is fine do not have this understanding, but it's much better when you understand the impact in the business results. Why? Simple. You're going to deal with stakeholders, shareholders in your conversation. You may need more money. You may need more funding to what you are doing. And how are you going to prove that what you're doing is profitable? Okay, let's talk the business language, and that's financials. If you don't have the necessary skills, bring someone to your team who can help you with that. Run those economic analysis. And if it comes up that the product doesn't show profitable or feasible, maybe it's time to invite your team to the table again and think into a different concept. Okay? Explore the possibilities. That's the thing. Explore the possibilities, build something useful, and you're for sure going to be able to create something great. Okay? And will that provide cash flow? You tell us. Will that provide indirect benefits? Will that reduce some costs? Will that provide value to different people in organization? Okay? A good and interesting way of thinking is think like a startup. You could be a startup, or you could be a startup within a large organization, which is not the same thing, but it's the same mindset. And why? You must show yourself or your product feasible profit over time. And if you tell me, but David, that's not how I like working, I would say it's fine. But it's how many interesting ideas have been transformed over time in unicorns, billion-dollar companies. Stick to the financials, but of course, stick to the customer needs first, as I mentioned the tips before. And last tip, so we can have maybe time later for comments, questions, or anything, is benchmark your product. Okay? So this is an interesting thing. And it's not easy because it consumes time, it consumes sometimes money, it consumes your social assets, it consumes your brain power, but it provides a fantastic value. Okay? So here's what I'm suggesting. Has anyone been doing what you were trying to do? Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Okay? Maybe with a Google search, you can find some interesting responses. And if you cannot find, maybe you're the smartest person in the room, and I would love to have a conversation with you. But in a world large as we have, I guess someone else has thought about it. And the constraint sometimes is just how we execute. So take a look for possibilities, look for different answers, look beyond your segment. The answer to the problem you're trying to resolve maybe is there already available. It may cost you some time, it may cost you some elements to think, but identify, and I would say, the key attributes you were trying to evaluate in the market. Are you trying to see how is your customer experience compared with other things? It doesn't matter. I mentioned Uber before. It doesn't matter if there's no competitor out there, and you maybe should take a look in different things. So, for example, you probably have heard about Disney World. So, do they provide a good customer experience? Take a look on how they do. Identify the key attributes and bring it to your business. Okay? That's how you translate what others have been doing successfully to your product so you can build something great. Okay? If you have some challenges with that, talk to your team. Maybe they can figure out. But if you still need some help, feel free to connect with me or others, of course, right? So benchmark your product. So in summary, and I'll leave the last few minutes for questions if there is. So remember, tip number one, understand people's problem. So some people, they're gonna have a common need, but others may be extreme, and you can use their ideas to improve what you are doing. Provide comprehensive information. I'm not saying to create lots of documentation. It's not that, but provide the necessary information to your team so they can understand what customer wants. Doesn't matter how many things. Keep it simple, but provide all the information necessary. After that, once you have an idea of what you have, what you want, define the product vision. Define the product mission. Why are you building what you are building? Okay, so your team can help and find some answers. Find different product concepts. Come up with them. Doing some research, benchmarking, as we mentioned before, but do not be limited to your knowledge. Evaluate in the market what is available, what is not, what is the current technology, what could you do beyond, okay? Talk to those who are creating, talk to those who are designing new things. You may be able to come up with something fantastic. And finally, all this is great, but we have to talk business language. So financial numbers are important. If you don't know, raise your hand, ask for help, okay? Invite someone to the table. That's important. And don't be afraid to come up with some terrible numbers. Better earlier than later, okay? So once you get those numbers, work and identify new possibilities. This is a continuous improvement process. And last but not least, benchmark your product with what is there in the market. You may be the brightest mind in the room, as I mentioned before, so connect with the best services that are available around the world. If you do that, I promise you're going to be very, very successful, okay? That's what I had. Wow, that was quick. Feel free to connect with me. That's my email address. I'll share my LinkedIn in a second. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them on a chat. I'm happy to stay here for a few more minutes. Thank you very much for joining us today. And if we can support you in anything, and can be a one-on-one conversation, can be a training, can be anything. Reach us out and we are gonna do our best to support you the way we can, okay? All right, I'll stay here for a few more minutes if anyone has any questions or comments. Otherwise, okay, there's a question. Gabriela, do you recommend a particular technique for understanding customer needs? Very good. Okay, Gabriela, that comes in my mind. Something that probably people have been using for many, many times. So you can start with brainstorming, okay? So you can come up with many ideas. So for example, Miro, let me show off some functionalities here. Miro has this functionality of stickies, okay? So you could be adding as many stickies as you want, and you could be brainstorming if it's in person or not. Anyway, once you do the brainstorming, come up with the affinity diagram. So you probably know you're gonna group all those ideas or all those thoughts into different groups and boxes. So let's say this is 2 ideas. After that, there's a 3 diagram which you can use, then where you would have, for example, here, it's not a fishbone diagram, but you would have your key objective, your customer, and then you would start creating the group categories. So let's say this is technology. You would put technology here. And then you would create all the necessary list of the ideas here. So sorry, it was not just one technique, but you can definitely combine brainstorming, affinity diagram, and then organize them into a tree diagram that I try to draft. Okay. Let me know if that helped, Gabriela. Okay. Oh, and just sorry, one more thing to your question. And of course, Gabriela, you can also invite people for a focus group, one-on-one interviews, but I would say start as simple and quick as possible. Get as much information as you can and go from there. Okay. Oh, affinity diagram, nice. And Connie, thank you. Are we able to get a copy of this presentation? Yes, absolutely. So what's going to happen is I'm recording, by the way, the session. So you're going to receive not as only a copy of this presentation, but also the recording on your email for those who double opted in a registration. If not, if you do not receive, please just feel free to email me and I'll take care of that for you. That's my email address one more time. Okay. How you download from Miro the slides? Very interesting question, Mihaela. So once you click on a picture, and that will be allowed, you just click it here, download. That's it. Okay. Simple. If you cannot do that, I would love if you can email me. I'm happy to provide a copy with that for you. Okay. There's a automated flow that is going to be taken care of. So you may receive that in the next couple of days. But I'm happy to support if you can. Anyway, if there is any question. It's one by one download. There will be one slide at the top. The one at the top, you can just click there and download everything. Okay, here, and once you click, it will download everyone. But you can download each one of them, which is not that smart. But anyway. Okay. Thank you, Mihaela. Okay. So if you allow me one more, maybe 30 seconds, I'm just going to share my LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me. And if you still have any questions, let me know. Just one more second. Okay, LinkedIn coming. Okay, with that, thank you very much, Radha. And this is the order that is showing to me. Lucy, Marilyn, Gabriela, Marcelo, Eva, Maria, Mihaela, Carlos. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope to see you some next time.